Hyunwoo Park stared at his screen in the dark control room of monitoring station Aegis 7 and rubbed his tired eyes. He had been working the night shift for 6 months now, and the endless stream of cosmic static was making him sleepy. The coffee machine had broken 3 days ago, and nobody seemed to care enough to fix it. Space was boring most of the time, and tonight felt just like every other night until his computer started beeping with an urgent alert sound. The signal was coming from the Kepler 442 system, which was about 12 light-years away from Earth. Hyunwoo had never seen anything like this before because the signal was clearly artificial and definitely not from any human ship or probe. His hands started shaking as he realized what this meant, and he quickly started recording everything while his computer worked to decode the strange transmission. Captain Sujin Lee was sleeping in her quarters when Hyunwoo called her on the emergency line. She answered on the second ring because emergencies were rare but always serious on deep space stations like theirs. When Hyunwoo told her about the alien signal, she thought he was playing a joke on her, but his voice sounded too scared to be joking. She put on her uniform and rushed to the control room where Hyunwoo was still staring at his screen with wide eyes. The signal was definitely real and getting stronger as their computers worked to decode it. Captain Lee had studied xenobiology in the academy, but she never thought she would actually encounter real aliens during her career. Most scientists believed that intelligent alien life existed somewhere in the galaxy, but nobody expected to find it so close to Earth. The signal seemed to be using some kind of mathematical code that their computers could slowly translate into basic concepts and ideas. After 2 hours of work, the translation was finally complete, and both Hyunwoo and Captain Lee read the message together. The aliens called themselves the Valari, and they were asking for help from something they called the Deathworlders from Sol, which clearly meant humans from Earth. The message explained that their planet was under attack by a species called the Krex Empire, and their people were dying. They had heard stories about the powerful warriors from the dangerous world called Earth, and they were begging these warriors to come and save them. Captain Lee felt confused because she had never heard of Earth being called a death world before, and she did not understand why aliens would think humans were particularly dangerous or warlike. Earth had its problems, but most humans were peaceful people who just wanted to live their lives. The message made it sound like humans had some kind of scary reputation in the galaxy that nobody on Earth knew about. The Valari message included star charts and technical data about their attackers. The Krex Empire seemed to be a large military force that traveled between star systems, conquering weaker species and taking their resources. The Valari described themselves as a peaceful people who had never developed powerful weapons because they had never needed them before. Their planet had been at peace for thousands of years until the Krex ships arrived 3 months ago. Hyunwoo studied the technical data while Captain Lee read the desperate pleas for help. The Valari were clearly losing the war, and their message suggested that many of their cities had already been destroyed. They estimated that they only had a few more weeks before their entire civilization would be wiped out or enslaved. The message ended with coordinates for their star system and a promise to share their advanced technology with anyone who could help them defeat the Krex invasion. Captain Lee knew she had to report this discovery to Earth immediately, but she also knew that sending a message to headquarters would take several hours due to the distance. She ordered Hyunwoo to prepare a full report with all the technical data and translation notes, while she composed an urgent message for Admiral Tae-ho Kim, who commanded the United Defense Fleet from his headquarters on Luna Station. Admiral Kim was reviewing fleet readiness reports when Captain Lee's emergency transmission arrived at Luna Station. The message was marked with the highest priority codes, and Kim opened it immediately. He had known Captain Lee for many years and trusted her judgment completely, so when she claimed to have received an alien distress signal, he took her seriously. The implications of first contact with an alien civilization were enormous, and Kim knew he would need to brief the Global Council within hours. The Admiral studied the translated message carefully and felt troubled by the references to humans as Deathworlders and dangerous warriors. Earth's military forces were certainly capable, but they had never been tested against alien technology or tactics. The idea that aliens across the galaxy might already know about humans and fear them was both exciting and concerning. Kim wondered what other alien civilizations might be out there and whether they saw humanity as a threat. The Volari star charts showed that their system was within range of Earth's newest long-range exploration ships, but such a journey would take many months and require enormous resources. Kim realized that if humanity decided to respond to this alien request for help, it would mean committing to their first interstellar war. The decision was too important for him to make alone and would require approval from the highest levels of Earth's government. Kim immediately called an emergency meeting with the Global Defense Council and transmitted all of Captain Lee's data to the council members. Within 6 hours, representatives from every major nation on Earth were gathered in the secure meeting room on Luna Station. The debate was intense because some council members worried that responding to the alien request might draw unwanted attention from other hostile species, while others argued that humanity had a moral obligation to help peaceful aliens who were being attacked. Dr. Sarah Chen, the council's chief science advisor, pointed out that the Volari were offering to share their technology in exchange for military assistance. The star charts alone showed that they had knowledge of dozens of other star systems and potentially hundreds of alien civilizations. The opportunity to gain access to advanced alien technology and establish diplomatic relationships across the galaxy was too valuable to ignore. General Robert Harrison, who commanded Earth's ground forces, was more cautious and worried about the military risks of fighting an unknown alien enemy. The Krex Empire had conquered multiple star systems, which suggested they had powerful weapons and experienced soldiers. Sending human forces into such a conflict could result in massive casualties and might even lead to the Krex Empire turning their attention toward Earth itself. After 12 hours of debate, the Global Defense Council reached a decision that would change human history forever. They voted to authorize Admiral Kim to assemble the largest military fleet Earth had ever created and send it to the Volari system to provide assistance against the Krex invasion. The vote was close, but the potential benefits of establishing humanity's place in the galactic community outweighed the risks. Admiral Kim left the council meeting with authorization to mobilize every available ship and recruit volunteer crews for humanity's first interstellar military mission. He knew that the next few months would be crucial as Earth prepared for its entry onto the galactic stage. The Volari were counting on the legendary Deathworlders from Sol to save them, and Kim was determined not to disappoint them, even though he still did not understand why aliens found humans so frightening. Lieutenant Da-Eun Choi had always been good at intercepting enemy communications and breaking encryption codes, but she had never worked on anything as strange as alien transmissions before. Her job at the intelligence division became much more interesting after Admiral Kim assigned her to monitor all radio signals coming from the direction of the Krex Empire. For 3 weeks, she had been listening to fragments of alien conversations and slowly learning how their communication systems worked. The breakthrough came when Da-Eun discovered that the Krex used a simple numerical encryption system that their computers could crack with enough processing power. Once she had broken their codes, she could understand most of their military communications, and what she learned made her feel both proud and worried about humanity's reputation in the galaxy. The Krex Empire apparently knew about humans and considered them to be one of the most dangerous species they had ever encountered. Da-Eun printed out dozens of intercepted messages and brought them to Admiral Kim's office, where she spread them across his desk like puzzle pieces. The Admiral read through the translations with growing amazement as he learned how aliens across the galaxy viewed his species. According to Krex intelligence reports, Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, which meant it was considered almost uninhabitable by galactic standards. The Krex military analysts had written detailed reports about human physiology and psychology that made Da-Eun laugh despite the seriousness of the situation. They described humans as persistence predators who could chase their prey for days without stopping, and berserkers who became more dangerous when injured or threatened. One report claimed that humans could survive in environments that would kill most other species within minutes. Admiral Kim was fascinated by a particular intelligence briefing that described human military tactics as unprecedented in their brutality and effectiveness, because humans were apparently the only species that deliberately sought out dangerous combat situations. The Krex analysts seemed confused by human concepts like heroism and sacrifice, which they interpreted as evidence of mental instability or suicidal tendencies. Minho Zhang worked in the xenobiology department and had been studying the biological data that the Volari had included in their distress signal. As a scientist, he was excited about the opportunity to learn about alien life forms, but as a human, he was shocked by how fragile the Volari seemed compared to his own species. Their bones were hollow, like bird bones, and their muscles were much weaker than human muscles, even accounting for their lower gravity environment. The Volari homeworld had gravity that was only 60% as strong as Earth's gravity, and an atmosphere that was thinner and contained less oxygen. Minho calculated that an average human would be able to jump 3 times higher and lift 5 times more weight on the Volari planet. Even more importantly, the Volari seemed to have very limited endurance and needed to rest frequently, unlike humans who could work or fight for hours without stopping. Minho shared his findings with Dr. Ha-Young Shin, who was preparing medical protocols for the upcoming mission. Ha-Young realized that treating injured Volari would require extremely delicate procedures because their bodies were so much more fragile than human bodies. A medical procedure that would be routine for a human patient could easily kill a Volari patient if the doctors were not careful. The most disturbing discovery came when Minho analyzed Volari's sensory capabilities and found that their eyesight and hearing were much better than human senses. This meant that the Volari could probably see and hear things that humans could not detect, but they had apparently still been unable to defend themselves against the Krek's invasion. Minho wondered what kind of weapons and tactics the Kreks were using that could overcome such advanced sensory abilities. Yuri Song was the chief engineer responsible for modifying human spacecraft for interstellar combat, and she was amazed by how primitive human technology appeared compared to alien standards. The Volari had provided technical specifications for their ships, which used advanced energy sources and propulsion systems that Earth scientists could barely understand. However, Yuri noticed that Volari ship designs seemed to prioritize efficiency and speed over durability and defensive capabilities. Human spacecraft had been designed to operate in the harsh environment around Earth where cosmic radiation, solar flares, and asteroid impacts were constant threats. Earth's ships were built like flying fortresses with thick armor plating redundant systems and powerful defensive weapons. Yuri realized that human military technology had evolved to survive conditions that most alien species had never encountered. The contrast became clear when Yuri compared human weapons to Volari defensive systems. Human kinetic weapons were designed to punch through thick atmosphere and overcome strong gravitational fields, while Volari shields were apparently designed to deflect energy-based attacks. Yuri suspected that human projectile weapons would pass right through most alien defensive systems because those systems had never been designed to stop solid objects moving at such high velocities. Admiral Kim received daily briefings from his research teams, and each report made him more confident that humanity could actually help the Volari despite being technologically inferior in many areas. Human advantages seemed to be in areas that the Krek's empire had not encountered before, including physical endurance, tactical flexibility, and weapons designed for extreme environments. The most encouraging intelligence came from Da-Yun's continued monitoring of Krek's communications. The alien military commanders were clearly worried about the possibility of human intervention, and several Krek's generals had argued against continuing their attack on the Volari homeworld. One intercepted message suggested that the Krek's High Command was considering withdrawing their forces from Volari space entirely rather than risk a confrontation with Terran berserkers. War Master Vexthor, who appeared to be the supreme commander of the Krek's invasion force, had sent multiple requests to his superiors asking for reinforcements if humans became involved in the conflict. His messages described previous encounters between Krek's forces and human exploration teams that had ended badly for the Kreks. Da-Un was surprised to learn that humans had apparently met aliens before without Earth's government knowing about. The intelligence reports painted a picture of a galaxy where most species had evolved on relatively peaceful worlds with stable climates and abundant resources. These aliens had developed advanced technology and sophisticated civilizations, but they had never needed to become physically powerful or mentally tough like humans. Earth's harsh environment had forced humanity to become survivors and fighters in ways that most aliens could not understand or replicate. Da-Yun discovered that the galactic community had been aware of Earth for decades, but had deliberately avoided contact because they feared human aggression and unpredictability. Most alien civilizations preferred to resolve conflicts through negotiation and compromise, while humans were known for their willingness to fight when threatened. This reputation had apparently spread throughout the galaxy and made most species reluctant to interact with humanity. Admiral Kim realized that Earth's isolation had been deliberate rather than accidental, and that humanity's first contact with aliens would need to be handled very carefully. The galaxy's peaceful species needed to understand that humans could be trusted allies rather than dangerous conquerors. The mission to help the Valari would serve as humanity's introduction to the galactic community and would determine how other species viewed Earth for generations to come. The final piece of the puzzle came when Minho discovered references to something called the Deathworld Classification System in the Valari databases. Earth had been studied and categorized by alien scientists who ranked planets based on how dangerous they were to intelligent life. Most alien homeworlds ranked between Class 1 and Class 3, while Earth had received the rare Class 12 rating, reserved for planets that were considered almost uninhabitable. The classification explained why aliens found humans so frightening and impressive. Any species that could evolve intelligence on a Class 12 death world would necessarily be incredibly tough, resourceful, and dangerous by galactic standards. The fact that humans had not only survived on Earth, but had actually thrived and developed space travel made them legendary among alien civilizations who struggled to survive on much easier worlds. Admiral Kim stood on the observation deck of Luna Station and watched the largest fleet in human history slowly assemble in Earth's orbit. Ships arrived daily from every corner of the solar system as the United Defense Fleet called in vessels. From Mars Orbital Command, the Asteroid Belt Mining Corps, and even the Deep Space Exploration Fleets. The sight filled him with both pride and anxiety, because he knew that this armada would either establish humanity as a major power in the galaxy or lead to catastrophic defeat against an unknown alien enemy. The flagship of the fleet was the UDS, Indomitable, a massive dreadnought that had been under construction for 5 years and was finally nearing completion. Captain Jae Sung-ro had been chosen to command the Indomitable because of his experience with experimental weapon systems and his reputation for staying calm under pressure. Ro had spent the last month working with his crew to familiarize themselves with the ship's advanced targeting computers and prototype energy shields. The Indomitable was over 800 meters long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon, but Captain Ro was more impressed by the ship's defensive capabilities. The hull was made from layered titanium steel composite that could withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons, and the ship carried enough supplies to operate independently for 2 years. Earth's engineers had designed the dreadnought to survive anything that hostile aliens might throw at it. Colonel Yoonji Nam commanded the 7th Orbital Drop Division, which was considered the most elite military unit in the solar system. Her Marines had trained for years in extreme environments, including the volcanic surfaces of Io, the frozen wastes of Europa, and the low-gravity conditions of Ceres. Nam herself had led combat operations against pirates in the asteroid belt and had earned a reputation for completing impossible missions with minimal casualties. The Marines under Colonel Nam's command were equipped with the latest powered exoskeletons that could enhance human strength and speed while providing protection against hostile environments. Each suit was essentially a personal spacecraft that could operate in vacuum for up to 72 hours and could survive impacts that would kill an unprotected human. The exoskeletons also included advanced medical systems that could automatically treat injuries and inject stimulants to keep wounded soldiers fighting. Nam had studied the intelligence reports about Valari and Krek's physiology and had modified her Marines' equipment accordingly. The low-gravity environment on the Valari homeworld would allow her soldiers to move faster and jump higher than ever before, while the thinner atmosphere would make their explosive weapons more effective. She was confident that her Marines could handle anything the Krek's forces could deploy against them. The fleet included 50 destroyers that had been hastily retrofitted with improved armor and weapons systems. Yuri Song had worked around the clock for 2 months to upgrade these ships, with enhanced railguns and missile systems that could operate effectively in interstellar combat. The destroyers were much smaller than the Indomitable, but they were fast and maneuverable, which would make them ideal for protecting the larger ships from enemy fighter attacks. 30 aircraft carriers had been modified to transport atmospheric fighters and ground support vehicles to the Valari system. The carriers also served as mobile bases for the marine divisions and could manufacture replacement equipment and ammunition during the long journey to alien space. Each carrier held enough supplies to support a full division of Marines for 6 months of continuous combat operations. Wu Jinbei had been promoted to Fleet Communications Officer and was responsible for maintaining contact with Earth during the mission. His equipment included the most powerful radio transmitters ever built, which could send messages across interstellar distances, although each transmission would take years to reach its destination. Bei also carried experimental quantum communication, devices that might allow instant contact with Earth if the technology worked as theorized. Dr. Ha-Young Shin prepared the fleet's medical facilities to treat both human and alien casualties during the upcoming conflict. She had studied Valari physiology extensively and had developed new surgical procedures that could be used on their fragile bodies. Shin also prepared isolation wards in case the fleet encountered alien diseases or biological weapons that could threaten human health. The journey to the Valari system would take 6 months using humanity's fastest hyperspace drives, and the fleet would need to carry everything required for a major military campaign. Supply ships carried millions of tons of food, water, fuel, and ammunition, while mobile factories could produce replacement parts for damaged equipment. The logistics of supporting 200,000 people for such a long journey were staggering, but Earth's military planners had learned from previous deep space missions. Training continued throughout the fleet as human soldiers prepared for their first combat against alien forces. Virtual reality systems allowed Marines to practice fighting in low-gravity environments, while pilots trained for aerial combat in alien atmospheres. Intelligence officers studied every piece of available data about Krek's weapons and tactics, while engineers worked to develop countermeasures against alien technology. The most challenging aspect of the mission was the uncertainty about what they would find when they reached Valari space. The aliens' distress signals had stopped arriving 3 weeks ago, which could mean that their communications had been destroyed or that their civilization had already been wiped out. Admiral Kim worried that the fleet might arrive too late to save anyone, but he was determined to continue the mission regardless. Captain Rowe received regular updates from the Valari system through long-range sensors that could detect energy signatures from the ongoing battle. The readings suggested that fighting was still continuing on the planet's surface, but the orbital space around the Valari homeworld was now controlled by Krek's forces. This meant that the human fleet would need to fight its way through alien defenses before they could land troops to help the surviving Valari. Colonel Nam's Marines practiced boarding actions against simulated Krek's vessels using intelligence gathered from intercepted communications. The aliens apparently used different ship designs and fighting techniques than humans, which would require new tactics and strategies. Nam was particularly interested in reports that suggested Krek's soldiers relied heavily on energy weapons rather than the kinetic weapons preferred by human forces. The cultural differences between humans and aliens became apparent as the fleet prepared for combat. Krek's communications suggested that they expected their enemies to surrender when faced with overwhelming force, while humans had a long history of fighting against impossible odds. Admiral Kim realized that the aliens might not understand human determination and willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. Yuri Song completed the final modifications to the fleet's weapons systems just days before departure. She had managed to increase the power output of the railguns by 30% and had installed new targeting computers that could track multiple enemies simultaneously. The engineering teams had also developed new types of ammunition specifically designed to penetrate alien energy shields and armor systems. Dr. Shin received the last reports from Earth's intelligence services about alien biology and medicine. The data suggested that most galactic species were much more vulnerable to physical trauma than humans and had less effective immune systems. This information would be crucial if the fleet encountered biological weapons or needed to develop treatments for alien diseases. The fleet's departure was scheduled for exactly 6 months after the first Valari distress signal had been received. Admiral Kim gave a final address to his crews via the fleet communications system and reminded them that they were representing all of humanity in their first contact with alien civilizations. The success or failure of their mission would determine Earth's place in the galactic community for generations to come. As the massive armada began its journey toward the Valari system, every person aboard understood that they were making history. Humanity was about to announce its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible by intervening in an interstellar war to save a peaceful alien civilization from destruction. The universe was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world and why its inhabitants were whispered about in fear across the stars. The human armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valari system and immediately detected the massive Krex fleet that surrounded the alien homeworld like a swarm of mechanical predators. Captain Rowe stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and studied the tactical display that showed over 300 enemy vessels arranged in a perfect siege formation around the planet. The Krex ships were larger than human vessels and had elegant curves and flowing lines that made them look more like works of art than instruments of war. Admiral Kim received the first communication from the planet's surface within minutes of their arrival. The transmission was weak and filled with static, but the voice of Prime Minister Thindar came through clearly enough to understand. The Valari leader sounded exhausted and desperate as he described the current situation on his world where Krex forces controlled most of the major cities and had enslaved millions of his people. Thindar expressed amazement that the legendary Deathworlders had actually come to help his species. The Valari Prime Minister provided crucial intelligence about Krex military capabilities and tactics during his initial briefing. He explained that the alien invaders relied primarily on energy weapons that could destroy buildings and vehicles, but were designed more for intimidation than actual combat effectiveness. The Krex had never encountered serious military resistance during their previous conquests because most galactic species surrendered quickly when faced with superior numbers and technology. Chang Min-o served as the fleet's primary tactical officer and was responsible for analyzing enemy formations and developing battle plans. He had studied the Krex fleet for several hours and was surprised by what he discovered about their strategic positioning and defensive arrangements. The alien ships were spread out in a pattern that looked impressive, but left gaps in their coverage that experienced human tacticians could exploit with concentrated attacks. The Krex vessels appeared to be designed for fighting against primitive opponents who lacked advanced weapons or coordinated military strategies. Their energy shields were powerful enough to deflect most energy-based attacks, but Changmin suspected that they had never been tested against human kinetic weapons that relied on physical impact rather than energy transfer. The tactical officer recommended an immediate assault using railgun bombardment followed by fighter strikes against key enemy positions. Admiral Kim decided to demonstrate human military capabilities by launching a limited attack against the outer edge of the Krex formation. He ordered Captain Rowe to target a cluster of enemy destroyers that were positioned away from the main fleet and seemed to be serving as reconnaissance vessels. The Indomitable's main railguns fired a coordinated salvo that crossed the distance between fleets in less than 30 seconds. The results exceeded everyone's expectations as the hypervelocity projectiles passed straight through the Krex energy shields as if they did not exist and punched massive holes through the alien hull armor. 3 enemy destroyers were completely destroyed by the first salvo, while 2 others were left drifting helplessly with their power systems offline. The remaining Krex ships in the area immediately began retreating toward the main fleet formation while broadcasting frantic distress signals. The destruction of 5 enemy vessels with a single attack created chaos throughout the Krex fleet as their commanders struggled to understand what had happened. Changmin monitored their communications and reported that the aliens seemed confused by weapons that could penetrate their shields and were requesting instructions from their superiors. Many Krex captains were apparently suggesting immediate withdrawal from the system rather than facing the mysterious human weapons. War Master Vex Thor responded to the attack by ordering his entire fleet to adopt a defensive formation around the planet while he attempted to negotiate with the human commanders. His transmission was broadcast on all frequencies and included offers of territorial concessions and tribute payments in exchange for human withdrawal from the system. The alien military leader seemed genuinely frightened by the demonstration of human firepower and was clearly hoping to avoid a full battle. Admiral Kim rejected the Krex surrender offer and demanded the immediate evacuation of all enemy forces from Valari space. He gave War Master Vex Thor exactly 1 hour to begin withdrawing his ships before the human fleet would commence a general attack against all enemy positions. The Admiral's message was transmitted in both human languages and the mathematical codes that aliens used for interstellar communication to ensure that there could be no misunderstanding. The Krex response came in the form of a massive energy beam attack directed at the Indomitable from their largest battleship. The alien weapon was clearly their most powerful offensive system and created a brilliant display of light and energy that would have destroyed most galactic vessels. However, the human dreadnought's experimental shields absorbed the attack with minimal damage, while its armor plating showed only superficial scoring from the energy discharge. Captain Rowe immediately returned fire with every weapon system available on his ship, including railguns, missile launchers, and experimental particle beam cannons. The concentrated firepower struck the Krek's battleship simultaneously and overwhelmed its defensive systems within seconds. The alien vessel broke apart in a spectacular explosion that could be seen from the planet's surface and served as a signal for the general battle to begin. The human fleet advanced in a coordinated formation that had been practiced during months of training exercises. Destroyers moved ahead to engage enemy escorts, while carriers launched fighter squadrons to attack Krek's supply vessels and communication ships. The Indomitable and other heavy cruisers concentrated their fire on the largest enemy vessels, while marine transport ships moved toward the planet to begin landing operations. Colonel Nam's orbital drop pods were launched during the height of the space battle and streaked toward the Valari homeworld like falling stars. Each pod contained a full squad of Marines in powered exoskeletons, along with enough equipment and supplies for extended ground operations. The pods were designed to survive atmospheric entry and surface impact even under enemy fire and could deliver troops directly to any location on the planet. The first wave of Marine landings targeted the capital city, where Prime Minister Thindar and his government were trapped in underground bunkers by Krek's occupation forces. Colonel Nam led the assault personally and was amazed by how easy it was to move and fight in the low-gravity environment. Her Marines could jump over buildings and move faster than any ground vehicle, while their powered armor made them nearly invulnerable to alien energy weapons. The Krek's ground forces had been designed to intimidate and control civilian populations rather than fight against trained soldiers. Their weapons were effective against unarmored targets, but could not penetrate human military equipment, while their tactics relied on psychological intimidation rather than tactical superiority. The alien soldiers seemed genuinely shocked when human Marines continued advancing despite being outnumbered and under heavy fire. Dr. Shin established field hospitals near the landing zones and began treating both human and Valari casualties from the ongoing battle. She was amazed by how quickly human soldiers recovered from injuries that would be fatal to most alien species, while noting that the Valari required extremely careful medical treatment due to their fragile physiology. The contrast between human durability and alien fragility was striking to everyone involved in the rescue operations. The space battle continued for 6 hours as human ships systematically destroyed or captured Krek's vessels throughout the system. Changmin reported that enemy resistance was collapsing as their commanders realized that their weapons were ineffective against human technology and tactics. Many Krek's ships began surrendering or attempting to flee the system rather than face certain destruction from human railgun attacks. War Master Vexthor made a final desperate attempt to salvage his invasion by ordering a kamikaze attack against the human flagship. 3 Krek's heavy cruisers accelerated toward the Indomitable at maximum speed, while broadcasting surrender signals to mask their true intentions. However, Changmin detected the deception, and Captain Rowe destroyed all 3 vessels with precisely aimed railgun fire before they could complete their suicide mission. The battle ended when the last functional Krek's command ship transmitted an unconditional surrender to Admiral Kim along with a request for safe passage out of the system. The alien fleet had been reduced from over 300 vessels to less than 50 damaged ships that were no longer capable of offensive operations. Human casualties were remarkably light, with only 37 wounded and no deaths during the entire engagement. Prime Minister Thindar emerged from his bunker to personally thank Colonel Nam and her Marines for liberating his capital city from Krek's occupation. The Valari leader was visibly awed by the human soldiers who towered over his people and moved with casual strength that seemed impossible to his species. He formally invited humanity to establish diplomatic relations with his government and offered to share advanced technology in gratitude for their intervention. The complete destruction of the Krek siege fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy as news of humanity's intervention spread through interstellar communication networks. War Master Vexthor's final transmission had described his attackers as demons from the void and unstoppable killing machines before his flagship was destroyed by a human railgun that punched completely through its hull armor. Within days, every major civilization in known space had received detailed reports about the mysterious Deathworlders who had emerged from the Sol system to devastate one of the galaxy's most feared military forces. Ambassador Sarah Yoon arrived on the diplomatic vessel Harmony 3 weeks after the battle ended and immediately began establishing formal relations with the Valari government. She was accompanied by a team of linguists, anthropologists, and trade specialists who were tasked with learning about alien culture and technology while representing humanity's interests in future negotiations. Yoon had studied alien psychology during her journey and was prepared to deal with species that might find humans intimidating or frightening. Prime Minister Thindar welcomed the human diplomatic mission with ceremonies that lasted for several days and included demonstrations of Valari art, science, and philosophy. The grateful alien leader presented Ambassador Yoon with detailed star charts that showed the locations of over 200 inhabited systems along with information about the political and military situations in each region. This intelligence was invaluable to Earth's strategic planners who were trying to understand humanity's place in the complex web of galactic politics. The Valari also shared their advanced technology, including improved energy sources communication, systems, and medical devices that could revolutionize human civilization. Dr. Shin worked closely with Valari scientists to adapt their medical technology for human use, while Earth's engineers studied alien computer systems and manufacturing techniques. The technology transfer represented the most significant advancement in human knowledge since the development of nuclear power. Intelligence Officer Dong-Hyun Ko had been monitoring communications throughout the galaxy since the battle ended, and his reports painted a fascinating picture of how different alien species were reacting to humanity's emergence. The aggressive Hegemony Confederacy had immediately canceled their planned expansion into the outer spiral regions, while several slave trading cartels had begun avoiding any star systems within 50 light-years of Sol. The galaxy's bullies and predators were clearly reconsidering their activities now that there was an even more dangerous species in the neighborhood. The most interesting intelligence came from the peaceful trading civilizations who seemed excited about the possibility of having powerful protectors. Ko intercepted dozens of messages from species that were requesting human military assistance against various threats, including pirates, raiders, and aggressive neighbors. The demand for human intervention was so high that Admiral Kim realized Earth would need to carefully choose which conflicts to become involved in. The Galactic Commerce Guild had issued an official statement recognizing humanity as a major power and inviting Earth to join their trade networks. This invitation came with significant economic opportunities, but also political obligations that would require careful consideration by Earth's government. Ambassador Yoon began preliminary negotiations while waiting for instructions from the Global Council about how far humanity wanted to integrate with galactic civilization. Colonel Nam received a new assignment to establish permanent human military bases in the Valari system and several other strategic locations throughout the region. Her Marines had become celebrities among the Valari population, who treated them with a mixture of admiration and awe that made some soldiers uncomfortable. The contrast between human physical capabilities and alien fragility was so extreme that even routine activities like opening doors or lifting objects required careful attention to avoid accidentally injuring their hosts. The psychological impact of human intervention was perhaps more significant than the military victory itself, because it demonstrated that the galaxy's established power structure could be challenged by newcomers with superior technology and tactics. Several oppressed species had begun organizing resistance movements after learning that the mighty Krex Empire could be defeated, while previously neutral civilizations were reconsidering their foreign policies to avoid potential conflicts with humanity. Dr. Shin established a permanent medical research facility on Valari Prime, where human and alien scientists could work together to develop new treatments and procedures. Her staff was amazed by the diversity of alien physiology and the unique medical challenges presented by different species. The research facility also served as a training center where human medics could learn to treat alien patients while sharing human medical knowledge with their galactic counterparts. Fleet Captain Bonhua Lim received orders to lead a second expedition to the Rigel system, where the Althari species had been enslaved by the Krex Empire for over 20 years. The liberation of Rigel 7th would demonstrate that humanity was committed to freeing all victims of Krex aggression while establishing human influence in another strategically important star system. Lim's fleet included many of the same ships, and crews that had fought at Valari, which gave them valuable experience in interstellar combat. The recruitment centers on Earth, Luna, and Mars were overwhelmed by volunteers who wanted to join the military forces after learning about humanity's galactic reputation. Young people across the solar system were inspired by stories of human heroes, fighting alien oppressors, and wanted to participate in humanity's expansion into the galaxy. The sudden surge in military recruitment allowed Earth to expand its space forces much more rapidly than originally planned. Admiral Kim established the Galactic Defense Command as a separate branch of Earth's military specifically designed to handle interstellar conflicts and alien relations. The new organization would be responsible for maintaining human bases throughout the galaxy, training soldiers for combat against alien forces, and coordinating with friendly civilizations that requested assistance. Kim was promoted to Supreme, commander of all human military forces operating outside the Sol system. The long-term implications of humanity's intervention were still being analyzed by Earth's political and military leaders, but the immediate results were clear. Humanity had successfully established itself as a major galactic power while gaining access to advanced technology and valuable intelligence about alien civilizations. The galaxy's peaceful species now looked to Earth for protection, while aggressive species were reconsidering their expansion plans. Changmin-O was assigned to study captured Krex technology and develop countermeasures against other potential alien threats. His analysis revealed that most galactic military forces were designed for fighting against similar opponents and were not prepared to face human weapons and tactics. This technological advantage would give humanity a significant edge in future conflicts, but O warned that aliens would eventually adapt their strategies to counter human capabilities. The establishment of permanent trade relationships with alien civilizations promised enormous economic benefits for Earth, while also creating new diplomatic challenges. Ambassador Yoon found herself dealing with complex political situations involving dozens of different species with conflicting interests and ancient grievances. Managing these relationships would require careful diplomacy and occasional military intervention to maintain stability. Yuri Song led a team of engineers who were reverse engineering alien technology and adapting it for human use. The combination of alien energy systems with human engineering principles produced hybrid technologies that were superior to anything previously available to either species. These technological advances would give humanity significant advantages in both military and civilian applications. The transformation of humanity from an isolated species to a major galactic power happened remarkably quickly, but the real work of building sustainable relationships with alien civilizations was just beginning. Earth's leaders realized that their success in the Valari system had created enormous expectations among oppressed species throughout the galaxy who now looked to humanity as their potential saviors. The galaxy had spent thousands of years developing a careful balance between aggressive and peaceful civilizations with established rules and traditions that governed interstellar relations. Humanity's sudden emergence as a dominant military force was disrupting this balance and forcing every species to reconsider their long-term strategies and alliances. As human ships patrolled the space lanes between Earth and its new alien allies, the galaxy slowly began to adapt to the reality that the legendary Deathworlders from Sol were no longer content to remain isolated in their remote corner of space. The universe had discovered that evolution on a Class 12 Deathworld produced not just survivors but protectors who were willing to fight against impossible odds to defend those who could not defend themselves.